Hello and welcome to Minimise Debt, Maximise Cash with Top Service, where each episode we will give you tips on how to maximise your cash and minimise your debt in the construction industry. My name's Emma Reilly, Top Service CEO, Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Credit Management and current CICM Council Advisory Member representing Trade Credit. In this episode, we continue our series of excerpts from our October 2025 seminar, Managing Retentions. There were a lot of principles shared that we think are good to remind ourselves of. This episode is about the final piece of advice each of the panellists would give credit managers. You will hear Philip King asking the questions and Simon Howell of Tarmac, Charlie Barratt-Meade of Top Service, Giuseppe Parla of Menzies and Debbie Nolan of the CICM providing the answers. There's also a cameo from yours truly at the end summing up what we learned throughout the seminar. If there's anything you hear that is of value to you, please register for our newsletters on our website and we will let you know when the next webinar is. The link to register is in the show notes of this episode.
We're almost at the end of time, so I'm going to ask each of you, if you wouldn't mind, just to share one brief final tip for us today. And I'll start with Simon.
I'm glad you did that because I can then do whatever, change it for everybody else. I think go back, do the basics well, which is understand your contract and then record it, measure it, manage it. And by doing that, you stand the best chance of actually getting the best out of it.
Okay, thank you. Charlie?
So I've take time to thoroughly research the company you're going to work with. I think that it's really important to make sure that they are the kind of company that you want to work alongside. Contract, again, I'm going to mirror Simon. I think that's a really, really important part, that you understand the contract that you're reading and ask questions. If you're not sure, make sure you communicate.
Good, thank you. Giuseppe?
I think from me, it's organisation. So keeping your books and records in good order, being organised, diarising things. The worst retention recoveries I've had is always when a director will say to me, "Oh, I thought they were my best friend. That's why we didn't really bother with much paperwork." And then towards the end, when your friend doesn't want to pay you, then they learn a hard and fast rule, I think.
Yeah, good point. Debbie?
So I would say don't forget the strength of your network across the CICM. In my experience, there's always someone within our community who has faced a similar challenge or who you can connect with, someone who has. Today's been a great example of that, with lots of different experience in the room. And as Philip mentioned earlier, look out for events, CICM events, branch network events. If you're not a member already, you can still join in some of the events, and they're all detailed on the website as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And now over to Emma, just to bring us to a healthy conclusion.
Thanks, Philip. I think, wow, there's been some really interesting topics discussed today. What really stood out to me was what a breath of fresh air to hear Giuseppe say that actually collecting retentions in an insolvency situation is pretty good, because I think we all tend to, well, a lot of people that I talk to tend to write things off when there's an insolvency situation. So I just thought, actually, what a positive thing to hear today. I think, something that's really stood out throughout the session is, and I think it was something that Simon started off with talking about, was sticking to the basics. I think sometimes, particularly now in credit management, we have so many resources, so many tools, so many different ways of looking things. Then if you want to throw a bit of AI into it and some new software, things can get overcomplicated. And I think actually just taking a second to think, actually, let's just take this back to basics. And it is all about knowing the contract, having a robust process, escalating if needs be, because it is a debt. And like we've discussed, it is the difference between a profit and a loss. And if you are escalating retention and you're using, a DCA or similar, measure the return on investment of it so that you know that it's working, or ask the person that you're escalating it to do that, because I guarantee you that will also make them work harder on it. A lot of the customers that I talk to the retention side of things does get forgotten, is probably the wrong word, but pushed to the bottom of the priority list because we all have so much to do. And I think, you know, if you haven't got the resources, then look at what resources you can pull in. And a lot of that, you know, you can find that out by, like Debbie said, collaborating in on platforms like this, using your connections at the CICM and, you know, in the construction industry. And also talk to the IP in cases of insolvency, engage with them, don't just write it off in your head. I think for me were the main points that have come out today. Hello, Emma here again. Thank you for listening. If there are any other questions, please do contact us on LinkedIn. Just search Top Service Limited. And also do check out a video version of this podcast on our YouTube channel. Once again, search for Top Service Limited. If we don't see you online, we will see you in the next episode where we will help you to maximise your cash and minimise your debt. Bye bye from Top Service.